Welcome back, everybody. Here it's Joe with 9 to 5ers, and excited to start out the new year with some investing. Everybody wants to kind of do a new thing. Maybe they want to get into real estate investing, and I wanted to kind of focus on some real estate investing just at a very, very high level. So this is going to be our presentation on investing in real estate, the basics. So real estate investing, the simple definition real estate investing, in my opinion, is to buy an undervalued commercial or residential property. You add value to it, and then you exit the deal at some point in the future. That could be you hold it until you find a good buyer that wants to pick it up from you, or you just hold it until you pass on, basically. But at some point, you're going to exit from the deal. But that's the basic thought process of it. And a complex definition real estate investing is basically just not worth our time. It's too long, and it's kind of one of those things where everybody has a different opinion on what a complex definition of it is. So let's just go to simple definition for right now. So that's our disclosure here really quickly. Just kind of use this for educational purposes. And if you need to get some advice on how to move forward, find somebody that is educated in that field. So types of real estate investing, I like to look at it as there is the primary colors. Remember if you were back in grade school, we had the primary colors, which were red and yellow, and there's a few others there. And then there was the secondary colors when you mix the two. So if you mixed, I think it was yellow and blue, you got green, or yellow and red, you got purple. So the primary colors of real estate investing would be buy and hold. And this is like single family homes. It's a small multiple units. So like a duplex or a triplex, all up until you got like the big apartments. You have vacation homes, you have Airbnb, and you have storage. These are just the basics here, guys. There's different types of stuff. You could rent a room if you wanted to in a house. But this is the basics of it. So buy and hold is one of the primary colors. Flipping, you basically you secure a property that is undervalued. You add value to it by fixing it up, and then you sell the deal to somebody else down the road, preferably as quickly as possible. But it's more of a transactional type of business where buy and hold is more of a long-term hold. And it's also single family homes, multi-units, and the same basic process. You can flip anything that you can buy and hold. You can flip it if the deal makes sense in that regard. So we're basically just looking at different exit strategies here. Wholesaling is another primary color, in my opinion. You find a deal, you secure the deal by the means of a contract, and then you sell off the deal to somebody else. A lot of times you don't even take possession of the property. You just sell the paperwork to somebody else. Like you find an amazing deal and you get it under contract, and then you sell it for a profit. So let's say that you had a deal and you were going to make a 20% return on this deal. Well, okay, great. Maybe you find somebody else out there that's looking to make a 10% return. So you split your 20% difference in half, and you take the profit up front when you sell the deal to the end buyer, and you are now out of the deal. Notes are another primary color, in my opinion, and that's when you own the debt on the property, and you can so you would basically be the bank in this situation. If let's say I wanted to buy a rental property, and I'm like, man, I don't have the money for it. Well, I would come to maybe you and say, hey, Mr. Lender, how about you buy this property for me, and you hold the note on it, and I'll use it as an Airbnb, and you make 8% on your money, and we'll do the loan for 20 years, so to speak, and we get all the paperwork filled out, and then basically you're the bank in this situation, and you can either hold that note for the full 30 years or however long we decide to do it, or you could sell that note to somebody else, and then I start making payments to somebody else. So whatever you wanted to do with that. That's a great way to make money. It's super passive, but all these are kind of like the primary ways to make money in real estate. The basic flow chart is you find a deal. This is for all of real estate. You would basically find a deal, you would add value to it, and then you would exit the deal. That is the basic flow chart for 90% of for real estate out of there is this basic 3-step process. Find something that is undervalued. You add value to it through repairs or whatever, and then you exit the deal, whether it be a flip, like you would sell it to an end buyer, or you would exit the deal by later on down the road. But at some point, you're going to exit the deal. So niches and secondary, this would be the secondary, the secondary color wheel, so to speak. This would be your purples and the other types of colors there. There's way too many to talk about here, but I want to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. This is a niche inside of real estate where people like to dial in and become an expert in a certain field. And they become very profitable and very successful at it and become a master at it versus just, the very generic flipping or buy and hold type of stuff. So maybe you own a house near an airport and you allow pilots and flight attendants to stay there. A lot of times people call that crash pads. It'd be like an Airbnb, but it's specific for flight attendants and pilots. A lot of people do this and they make a lot of money. You could also do this for, think about college students. Like you own a buy and hold property, but you focus only on college students where they would stay there a semester and their lease would be up on a semester term, not like they wouldn't be signing a 3-year lease with you. They'd be signing a semester long lease. So you would make more money off of this, but there would be some different niches to deal with there. You could buy a property cheap and then owner finance it to another investor or a tenant buyer. So let's say you find a property, you fix it up, and instead of just, this is what I like to call a very slow flip. So let's say that you find a deal and you're like, oh, this is amazing, but I don't really want to hold this forever. Like I want to be off of this at some point, but I don't want to flip either. So you find like this hybrid method, and this would be along the lines of like, you'd be like, hey, Joe, I got this awesome deal. I'll sell it to you, owner finance. And you just put down 10% and you can get a hold of it and you buy it off of me. And let's say that you have to exit the deal in 20 years. I'm like, okay, great. So I buy the property from you. That's what I would call a slow flip. That's not a technical term or an industry term. It's just a term that I kind of made up on my own. But that's what I would use as a slow flip. Like you flip the property, but it took you 20 years to flip it, but you made money the whole time. So you would make payments in you get the down payment, which would be awesome, the 10%. So you would get some of your money back that you invested. And then I would make payments to you over time, over 20 years. That would be my mortgage payments. And you would make money off of that. And then let's say after 10 years, I'm like, hey, man, I want to refinance this with a bank to get a lower interest rate. And you're like, perfect, no problem. And then whatever the balance is, the bank would pay it off and they would take over the loan and they would be the new lender for me. So that would be another niche, so to speak. Lease a house from an owner and then sell it to someone else. This is called a sandwich lease option. So let's say that I have a house and I'm looking to sell it, but I'm just like, man, I want top dollar for this thing. I want top dollar and no one wants to buy it from me. And I can't get anybody to buy it. So I'm just like, okay, I'm open. I'm negotiable on my terms, but I still want top dollar. And you come in, you're like, hey, Mr. Seller, I will give you top dollar for it, but I'm going to do it with a lease with an option to buy. So let's say that you want $200,000 for your house, and I'm like, yep, that's what I want. I won't take a penny less. So you say, okay, I will lease the property from you for X amount of dollars per month. So it'd be basically like if you would live there, kind of like a lease, but you're not going to actually live there. You're going to lease it, and then you have the first right to buy it for, let's say, we'll do the lease for 3 years. The next 3 years, you can choose to exercise that option to buy it or not. And the reason why I would want to do that is because you'd be making payments to me over time, and this would be just like a lease with an option to buy. So basically, you're renting the property, but you have the opportunity to buy the property from me at $200,000. So if the market goes way up and my house goes from being worth $200,000 being worth $300,000, I still have to sell it to you for $200,000 because we have that agreement in place. If the market tanks, then I'm still at $200,000, and you just kind of have to make that option you would probably not buy it at that point. But a lease with an option, then you would sell to somebody else. So let's say that I want to sell to you for $200,000 and you're like, okay, fine, let's do a lease with an option to buy. Then you would sell it to, you would purchase it from me with a lease to option. And then you would go out and find a tenant buyer that wants to buy it. And let's say the market goes up, and let's say the market goes up to like, say 275. And you go, hey, I found an end buyer that wants to buy it for 265. And then you sell it to them. And then now they go to a bank and they purchase the property and they get a loan from a bank for 265. Now I get my 200, which is awesome. And then you get your 65, which is awesome. And you basically didn't have that much money in the deal. Maybe let's say a down payment and maybe some payments over time. So let's say that you had maybe 10 grand into it. Well, it's 10 grand turned into 65. That's a pretty darn good deal on your end. Buy a note and sell off some of the payments, but not all of them. So this is kind of a weird one, but let's say that I came to you and I'm just like, hey, I want to buy this property, but I don't have the money. And you go, well, and you say, well, okay, well, I'll buy it and I'll hold the note on it. I go, okay, great. So we buy a property together basically, and I'm making payments to you. And let's say you have $50,000 into the property. You bought it for 50, but it's worth 100. And I'm the one that put up all the repairs to the property. So now I took this smoking hot deal from 50 up to $100,000, and I think it's worth $100,000. And I'm going to be making payments to you over time. Well, what you could do is you could sell some of those payments to somebody else. And let's say that I'm making payments to you on a 10% interest rate basis. Okay, well, what you could do is you could sell some of those payments to another investor enough to where you get your money back, and you would basically be making everything above that would be 100% profits. You'd have all your money out of the deal, and but you still be making payments. I'd still be making payments to you after I made the payments to the other investor. And that sounds a little bit weird and maybe a little bit confusing, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like another level of investing, and it's kind of a niche type of thing that people do as a note buyer. Another thing you could do is buy a storage facility. You could sell back enough of your principal on it and then make an infinite return on your money. So what the heck does that even mean? So let's say that you find a mom and pop storage facility, and they're just not taking care of it. They're older and it's run down. It's like let's say it's 100 units and they only got like 5 of them filled up, and they don't have time. It's not something they want to do. They don't have the time for it anymore. So you buy it from them at a super deep discount because it's not performing. It's not making any money. And a lot of times commercial real estate, the way that commercial real estate is valued is not based off of what, say, like a generic appraisal is going to go for, because commercial buildings are based off of how much money they're making, not really a comparable. Because if you have a giant building and this one giant building over here sells cars and they're making, $10 million a year, then that giant building is worth way more than, let's say, a laundromat that's making maybe $20,000 a year. The buildings are the same size, let's just say, but one's making $10 million a year and one's making $20,000 a year. Well, you can't say, oh, these buildings are worth the same amount of money. They're not. They're totally different buildings. So commercial buildings are worth what the cash flow is on it. So what you would do is you would find a storage facility, and there are only 10 of the units are being used up. Well, let's say you ramp it up to 99 units. You got all but one unit filled up. Okay, let's say you're at 99% capacity, and there was a vacant lot back there, and there was just unused, and you add, let's say, 50 more storage units on it. Now you're at 149 units that are filled up. You get that one that's just not there yet, that's not filled up. So you have increased the cash flow from 10 units to 149 units. So the value of the property has gone up significantly because the cash flow is coming in exponentially higher. So let's say that you had 50 grand invested into this. And let's say it was, worth maybe 60 grand when you bought it because it was underperforming. Now you have a property that's worth, let's say, $500,000. So you got your initial investment, you find a partner that wants to come in, and they're just like a turnkey partner. They're like a partner that's just like, hey, you find me a deal, I'll throw some money at it, we'll make it happen. So you find that partner and you go, hey, I got this deal, I got the storage facility, and you can get in for X dollars, and for my initial investment, basically, and we'll make this percent together on it. And then they're like, yeah, so they didn't find the deal. You found the deal. You put in all the hard work. You put in all the effort. All they did was show up with some money. So you take their money and you pay yourself off with the from what your initial investment was. And now whatever profit you make from the deal, from the storage facility, is considered an infinite return because you don't have any of your own money in the business. Like, imagine if a bank that you don't have any sort of affiliation with just started sending you checks for $100 every single month. Well, what would be your return on that investment? Well, you didn't invest anything. So you don't have any money in their savings account or their checking account or a CD. You don't have anything there. They just start sending you money. That's an infinite return on your money, which is awesome. So that's just I hope that point came across there. So with that being said, a lot of times people, they start to realize how many different options that there is in real estate, and they start to kind of panic, or they get that paralysis of analysis and they're just like, I don't know what to do, or they just jump around, or they do know what they want to do, or they think they know what they want to do, and they just start jumping around and just trying everything, and they don't really get deep into something. So there is enough options in real estate to accommodate almost any personality and almost any person. So how do you pick? What do you do? What should I be doing? Well, you want to start with a vision or a filter or a compass, like something that you can put down on a piece of paper that says, this is what, why do you want to get into real estate in the first place? Well, I want to get into real estate because I want to be able to travel the world and not have a 9-to-5 job. Okay, well, that's great. With that being said, you're going to need something in real estate that is not going to have to require you to be boots on the ground there and focused on the deal. So that might be closer to a note versus maybe a flip. Now, you can be 100% hands off on a flip, but it's a lot harder to do that than it would be to buy a note or be a partner in, say, a storage facility where the original investor is the operator too. They're dealing with all of the work in it. And you're just a partner in it, so to speak. What is this real estate going to get you? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? Now, I know the obvious answer is money, but besides money, what are you trying to get out of it? Are you trying to build a legacy for your kids, to something you can hand off down the road? Are you trying to get free from your job? Are you trying to build up a retirement and you want to keep your job for now? This is kind of like just you diversifying your portfolio. Are you trying to buy a couple properties to where that you just have a better vacation? You can add on a vacation every single year. You can fly first class. I mean, what are you trying to get out of this besides, and yes, it is money, obviously, but it's like, what, the money is the easy answer. What is that money going to, that's like the first answer. The real answer is, what is that money going to, what is the purpose of that money? You're not going to just get into real estate just so that you can have, more money, but you don't really care that you have more money. Like, you're accumulating money for something else. Like, what is that something else? That's the important thing. And where is your genius zone? Do you know what your genius zone is? That's really important. That's one of those things where you would be looking at it and you'd be like, okay, I'm really, really good at talking to sellers and making offers. So if you're really, really good at that, then you probably shouldn't be focusing too much on the rehab. You need to be focusing on getting in front of sellers and talking with them. That's where your genius zone is. if you don't like talking to people and you're not really, and you're handy, then maybe being the general contractor on the deal, like focusing on the flip and having someone else going out and looking for the deals and talking with sellers, that might be your strong suit. So knowing where your genius zone is important. And there's tests out there to kind of do that. And what do you need to hire out? What do you want to hire out? I know real estate investors. I know two real estate investors that are both millionaires. One guy does all the rehabbing by himself with like some general labor guys helping him. And that's what he likes to do. Like, that's what his focus is. That's where he wants to be. He feels like him accomplishing something at the end of the day. He's got, calloused hands and he's tired and his back is sore. That's where he feels like where his best effort is. And he's a millionaire because of it. So who's to argue that? There's another guy. He's also a millionaire. I don't know if he's ever fixed a toilet. He might have fixed a toilet back like 20 years ago when he first started doing this, but not when he was a millionaire. When he was moving up, as soon as he could afford a toilet guy to fix a toilet, he was out. It's like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to go focus on finding deals. So know what you want to hire out and what you want to do yourself. That's important. And that's going to come from your genius zone. Hire out everything that you don't want to do. If you don't want to talk to sellers, hire someone that's going to close for you. Hire someone that's going to talk to sellers on the phone. Or if you don't want to change out hot water tanks, then hire a contractor or a labor guy that knows how to do that. Take a personality test, shadow another investor, find a mentor or coach. They're going to be the ones that are going to help you figure out what your genius zone is, what you want to do, what the actual nit and gritty of each role is in a business, because there's pros and cons to every single part of real estate. And it's just kind of like what you enjoy doing and what you're willing to put up with is really important. So really, really key in on your vision and your filter first. And remember that is a living document. So if you find something and you're like, oh, I really like doing this, but then you get into it and you're like, oh, I hate doing this, I'm not doing this ever again. Then change it. There's no big deal. Like, that's the whole point of this, is to figure out and grow. And do I want active or passive income or both? So each one of these kind of requires a different skill set. So an active income, we'll kind of get to that a little bit in the next slide here. But are you focusing on active income? So that's like your paycheck. Or are you focusing on passive income, which is like building wealth? Or do you need both? Well, if you need both, then you have to do both sets. So active and passive income. Active income, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but active income is basically time equals dollars. So your job, that is active income. Flipping a house, that is active income. Wholesaling is active income. It's big money, but it's a job. So if you flip a house and you make 100 grand off of that deal, that's awesome. That's amazing. You did a great job. But that 100 grand is one paycheck and that's it. It's there and that's it. That's all it's coming. Passive income is creating a system, and the system will create the dollars. So a system would be like a buy and hold system. So like if you have a property management, how do you get people in? How do you get renters in? How do you screen them? How do you take care of maintenance? How do you, once the tenant leaves, how do you fix up the property again? How do you find deals? That's kind of like systems coming together. And same thing with notes. How do you find the deals? How do you analyze your deals? What is your exit strategy for best case scenario? What's your exit strategy for worst case scenario? How do the payments get set up? Notes are probably the most passive of the things that I can think of, but you're getting less money per month. Like, you might be getting $500, $600, $700,000 a month. You're not getting $100,000 unless you have like a ton of money invested, but you're getting it forever, or as long as you are in the deal. Hybrids. So there's certain types of, this is kind of like the primary colors mixing together and creating some secondary colors here. So seller finance, that would be a hybrid. A lease option would be a hybrid, and Airbnb would be a hybrid of the two. So Airbnb that's like a buy and hold, but your turnover is exponentially higher than than like a regular rental. A regular rental, someone's going to live there for X years. or X months at the very minimum. And they're going to, let's say they're going to pay you $500 a month. Let's just say that. Well, an Airbnb, if you had it rented out every single day that month, you're potentially looking at 3 times that amount of income. So we're going from 500 to 1,500. But that Airbnb is furnished and it gets cleaned, and it gets cleaned by either you or a cleaning person. So it's more of an active income. It's closer to the active income spectrum than, say, than buy and hold just a regular renter. But you're going to make more money. So you got to remember that the hybrid is kind of like the passive and active income. It's not very polarizing, except for like the extreme things. So like flipping or wholesaling, like that's kind of more of an active income. And the buy and hold and the notes, those are kind of on the other end of the spectrum, the passive. And then, but remember that this is kind of a spectrum type of thing. It's not like one or the other. A lot of times it is inside of a spectrum. So seller finance would be like the deal that we talked about, where the slow flip. So you would buy a property and then you fix it up maybe, and then you sell it to an investor. And the investor is like, he gives you a down payment. So that's active income. Okay, boom, you get the down payment. That's it. You only get, then he makes payments to you over time. Okay, well, that's passive income. And then let's say that after 5 years of the 30-year loan, he refinances it with a bank. Well, that's active income again. But once he refinances it, he doesn't pay you anymore. So that's the end of the purchase. But you had active, passive, active income. So it's kind of a hybrid of the two. Excuse me. Make sure that you don't get paralysis of analysis. That's important. Try something, anything. You don't want to jump into a deal blind, but start putting yourself into positions where the action happens. Go to your local real estate investment association where like-minded people get together. Go to an auction. Watch the process happen. Like, get a real estate agent. Start walking through properties. Start analyzing stuff. Start making paper mistakes. A paper mistake would be like you would go in and you would go through the deal, but you don't actually purchase the deal. And then maybe you get like let's say you would make an offer on a property and you're thinking like, oh, $100,000. Okay. So then a paper mistake would be something that you would go, you do your own analysis on it. And then you get a home inspector and they go, oh man, I see your repair list here, but you need to add in leaky roof and a foundation that is buckling on this one wall. So instead of $100,000, it needs to be like more like along the lines of $70,000. So that's like a paper mistake. Yes, you have to pay for the homeowner's home inspection, but that was maybe a $300 education versus a $20,000 or a $30,000 education, which I've done before, which is nice. I mean, it's not nice to pay the $300, but it's cheaper than $20,000 or $30,000. Ask lots of dumb questions. And the reason why I say that is that you're a rookie, you're a newbie, you don't know what you're doing. And some people become afraid to go, what? Like, where do I close this at? Like, what's title insurance? What do I need to, what's the difference between actual cash value and replacement cost for owning an insurance policy on this? Should I get a higher deductible or a lower deductible? I don't understand it. What's the difference between the two? What does that mean? Just make sure you're asking the dumb questions to the right people. Like, if you're asking insurance questions, ask the dumb questions to the insurance agent, because that's kind of their forte, and they can give you an exact answer. Ask the dumb questions about legal stuff to your attorney. Ask the dumb questions about the real estate, maybe closing process with the title agency or your real estate agent. Make sure you're asking the dumb questions to the correct party, because not only are they going to give you the right answer, but that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. And then take a calculated risk. Once you get to about, I don't know, let's say 60% comfort level, the process all the way through, you're going to have to take a calculated risk at some point. The best of the best of the best investors, they never know. They're never 100% certain how a deal is going to end up. They might get to maybe 90%. They might be like, okay, they have a success rate of say 90% of getting it accurate. But I don't know of any investor that has gone through a deal and they created like, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to, it's going to cost to rehab it. This what I'm going to sell it for. And this will be my target. This will be my sale price. And this will be my profit. I don't know any investor, including myself, that has projected that out and then got it 100% right ever, like ever. It's always an estimate. You just need to realize that you're trying to get your estimate to as accurate as possible, but it's always going to be an estimate. And you need to take a calculated risk versus just gambling versus speculating. So make sure that you understand that there is such thing as a calculated risk. Who are your team members? Your team members are going to be a real estate agent, a title company, or a closing attorney. You're going to need an insurance agent. You're going to need a lender. You're going to need a general contractor, tradespeople, or basic labor. You're going to need property managers. And when I say all of these things, I want you to understand that all these people need to be real estate investors themselves, or they need to work with other real estate investors. Real estate investors are way different types of people than the average person that's going to go out and just buy a house and then live in it for 30 years. Real estate agents that are focused on investors have a way different mindset and skill set than a real estate agent that's looking for Jack and Jill home buyer that wants to buy their first property. Same thing with title companies, closing attorneys, insurance agents, lenders. An insurance agent needs to understand that, hey, we're rehabbing this property. That means it's going to be vacant for 60 days. Like, am I covered for that? Because a vacant property is different than a property that a person is you're going to move in and then redo the kitchen. Like, you live there. There's different insurance types for that. So make sure that your agent, all these people that we're looking at here, right here, they know that you're an investor, and hopefully they're investors too. If they're investors, that's way better because they understand the business, versus like a general, just generic lender or whoever. So some takeaways, guys. Most people that start in investing jump around a while. I know I did. I know other investors did. I don't know very, very many investors that, oh, I started out in flipping and that's all I've done and that's all I will ever do. Everybody that's been in investing for an extended period of time, they tried investing, they tried wholesaling, they've tried flipping, they've tried buy and holds, they've tried lease options. They tried maybe not all of those things, but maybe they tried 3 or 4 different things. And that's okay. You need to jump in and you need to try different things, and that until you find out where your niche is. But it's important to find your niche at some point. Successful investors have a vision, they have a filter, they have a reason why they're getting out of bed. They have a reason of why they need to do the hard thing they need to do that day. Successful investors focus on 1 or 2 types of investing. Like, I don't care like who is out there. If no investor is doing 20 different things in real estate, they might have a piece of 20 different things, but they're not actively involved in 20 different things, like making decision, boots on the ground decision. That's just not true. The most successful investors have a niche. They might have 1 to 2 types of investing, and that's basically it. Now, you say, Joe, well, I know this guy that's in this and that and the other. Okay, well, it's different if their money is in it and they're looking at like a report once a month. That's kind of different. That's way different than being like actively flipping properties, focusing on it and becoming the best of the best in their area. If they just let somebody borrow money from them and that person's the expert, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in it like they're in it to focus and become a master. They're just a lender, so to speak. So successful investors focus on 1 to 2 types of investing. If you start to say, oh, I'm a flipper, I'm a landlord, I do notes, and you start like rattling it off like a giant long spreadsheet, then you're not going to be successful as someone that does, oh, I only flip. That's all I do. That person's going to make way more money than any other person out there that is trying to do 10 different things at once. Successful investors give more than they get. And that's kind of a weird concept, but a lot of times newer investors come in and they go, hey, how can you help me? what can you do for me? And it's just like, well, you need to realize that investors all need to come with the mindset of like, hey, what do you need? How could I help you out? Especially if you're a newer investor, because you're letting them know that you're serious and you're trying to help them, and you're not wasting their time, but it's also, you're finding out very quickly what they do. If it's a person that's just like, how could I help you? And they're just like, listen, I got tons of money. I just need deals. Like, send me deals and I'll be happy. Well, if that's what they're saying, then that means they're on your buyer's list. And now you could be a wholesaler to them. Or let's say that they're just like, I don't know, I don't have any money, but I got tons of deals. They're the other end of the spectrum. I got tons of deals. Okay. Then you private lend to them, or you shadow them and figure out how they do what they do. Or let's say that they're landlords. Okay. A good landlord with a ton of properties always has a vacancy somewhere. And they can be like, listen, you send me a great applicant and I'll give you $300. You send an applicant that goes all the way through and they're perfect and they stay there for, they sign a lease and they pass everything, I'll give you $300. That's a quick way to, make money in real estate without really, you're helping out an investor, you're making money, and you are learning from them. You can be, listen, okay, $300, and I want to learn how you do what you do. Like, explain, because I want to get in this business too, type of thing. So always come with the mindset of like, how can I help you out? How can I help the other person out? So successful investors network consistently. I've heard the cliche term of like your network is equal to your net worth. I agree with that for the most part, in the fact that every time I've hit a glass ceiling in my business, it's because I'm not networking enough. I don't have enough of something. I don't have enough private money. I don't have enough deals. I don't have enough tradespeople that can fill up what I'm like my repairs or my rehabs I'm trying to get done. I'm missing a piece somewhere, and that's always fluctuating here and there. So, and another thing would be if I'm a landlord and I got 10 vacancies, I need to find someone that can bring me tenants. And there's local organizations that try to find tenants they put them through a screening process. And if you can find them a home and whatever, that's good. That's what you're looking for. Make friends with them and put them in your network. Successful investors have active and active income strategy. So this is kind of, you got to watch this one. This is different between the successful investors focus on 1 to 2 types of income, because the reason why I'm saying this is because you have to counterbalance. If you are totally focused on passive income, your cash reserves are going to deplete quickly, because if you invest $50,000 into or $100,000 into a property, you can only do that so many times before your money just runs out. And remember, passive income comes back low and slow. So even if the deal is successful and amazing and awesome, that's great. But that $50,000, that $100,000 is going to take a while to come back to you. And you need to have 2 different things. And if let's say you're only active income focused, you're just bringing in $100,000 checks. That's great too. But at some point, you're going to want to retire. At some point, you're going to want to sit back and do nothing or do next to nothing. And if you live on if you do 5 flips a year and they're $100,000 each, and you live on a $450,000 lifestyle, you're only really saving 50 grand a year, not including taxes and all that information stuff. But you have to have a balance of both. And that's kind of where people, they get paralysis of analysis, or they try to start doing 10 different things at once. Just make sure that you're creating your business, and it's when you're trying things that you like, try to figure out lateral movements up and down. So let's say that you're a buy and hold person. That's all you do. All you do is buy and hold. Okay. Well, at some point you're going to need, that means you don't have any active income. So what if for every other deal that you find and you buy, you sell it to another investor? Like, let's say me, I'm a guy looking for deals, and you're like, okay, I come up to you hypothetically and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for deals. And we do that process where it's an owner finance. So you got a deal and you're like, hey, I'll sell you this property right here. I go, awesome, perfect. I give you 10% down. That's active income. And then we do a 30-year loan. So then for, let's say, the next 5 years, I make payments to you. That's passive income. And then 5 years later, I'm like, hey, I'm going to refinance this with a bank. So then 5 years, you get that big chunk on the back end, whatever the balance was, and you get paid for it. Now, obviously, you're going to sell it to me for more than what you paid for it. So let's say you bought it for 50, you put some value into it, you get it up, it's cash flow, and it's great, and you sell it to me for 80. Okay, well, I'm happy to pay 80 if the numbers make sense to me. And you're happy to sell it to me for 80 because you're going to make 30 grand minus repairs. But if you did that and you had enough of those in your pipeline to where you're making, let's say, $25,000 every 6 months, you have enough of those in the pipeline to where every 5 years, one of your owner finance borrowers, investor borrowers are paying you off, but you have enough in the pipeline where you're getting paid off every $25,000 every 6 months, then that's active income along with the passive income. So try to focus on lateral movements. Try to stay within your wheelhouse as much as you can, because it's way easier to go from to becoming a buy and hold landlord and doing some owner finance with investors than being a buy and hold landlord and becoming a straight up wholesaler. That's all they do is wholesale. They do cross over like a little bit, but they don't cross over as much as being a owner financing a deal. Like it's almost 100% overlapping. Like you're not really doing too much different. And that's one thing that I've learned recently is that it's okay to do multiple things, but if you could do 3 different things, but if they overlap each other 90%, you're really learning 10%. You're not becoming a flipper and also an inventor like of kids' toys, or I'm a flipper, I invent kids' toys, and I also am a writer too. Like, and I write about poetry. Like, it has nothing to do with anything else. Like, that's completely 100% 3 different things that you're doing. And I'm using that as an illustration of a point of like, the closer you can overlap your investment strategies, but they give you different benefits, that's where the success really comes in. That's when you can do multiple things without stressing about, having to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So guys, what did you think about this? Tell me what your thoughts are. What's in the past that stopped you from reaching your financial goals? What types of videos would you like to see in the future? Please like, comment, subscribe, and check us out on Facebook, 9 to 5ers. Thank you so much. Have a good day.